In a previous video, we did what I call untraining. And this video is going to be another video about untraining, unlearning stuff that is actually just wrong. It's just counterproductive. And it's what we're taught in Western culture. Whether, again, you be out in United States, Canada, Europe, Australia. It's something that we were taught literally since we were kids and through music and media. And it's just gotten worse. It's just so off base. And it's about what it means to be the man. Especially what we're going to focus on here is the whole sex part of the relationship. Now, you're going to be coming out to the Philippines, and whether you decide to live here or you decide to date, different parts of the year here, or whether you plan to come here, build a relationship, marry a Filipina, take her back to your country. You're going to be, at some point, of course, having sex with your Filipina. Now, here's the big difference, is that what we've been taught in Western culture is women have, since the 1970s, with the women's movement, which in itself was not a bad thing when it started. I'm all for women being paid equally for the same job, all that. Equal access to education and all that. But it got to a point where essentially women became more equal and more demanding. And as the whole sexual revolution occurred over the 80s and the 90s, women essentially started throwing up these lists and gauntlets and requirements out of men. And it's only gotten worse. In fact, it's pathetically bad now. Whether you're, again, in Europe or the United States, it's really bad. The women have essentially basically said, well, I want to call all the shots, and I want this, and I want this, I want. It's all about them. Ironically, when you think about even the wedding, more and more it's emphasized from the women, this is my day. Well, what about the guy? He's getting married too. In fact, he's probably the one paying for it, so why is it all your day? Anyways, don't get me started on that. So, getting back to the whole sex thing. What we have been taught, and what you've likely been through in your divorce, marriages, is a situation where basically she was very compliant during the dating phase, and then you get married, and there's that honeymoon phase. But then after the honeymoon phase, and you get into the whole marriage phase, pretty much that's when most guys who are divorced tell me that things went downhill, especially when it came to sex. More and more, it became about essentially you're always in the mood for sex, and you have to adjust to the times that she is willing to open the gate. She has to not have a headache. She has to not be tired. She has to be in the mood. She has to this, she has to that. And pretty soon, all these requirements from her, the way she's positioned herself in the relationship, is basically she's got what you want, and she's only going to let you have it either to get something in return. And again, Western women criticize Filipinas for being gold diggers. They're no different. They will hold back sex to get what they want in a marriage, which they're not supposed to be doing in the first place. A wife is never to tell her husband no. So anyways, so what happens is in a Western marriage, things begin to decline to where she puts herself really in the power position. There is only sex when she says so. When she's in the mood, doesn't have a headache, And we, as men, we get divorced and we go through 10, 20 years of this nonsense, and then we meet a Filipina. And what happens is, we start having sex with them and everything. Now, the most welcome thing that you're going to find with pretty much 99.9% of Filipinas, I've only had 1 in 5 years that was different, is that because of their culture, their upbringing, everything, their approach to sex, when they're in a relationship with a guy, they already understand that if they're in a relationship with a guy, anytime he wants sex, she's going to give it. Okay? Most Filipinas, I won't say all, but I'll say like 60, 70%. The Filipinas that I have known, and I've talked to a lot of guys about their relationships and stuff, these Filipinas, they don't initiate sex, but they will never say no. So if you're in the mood and you make it clear that you want sex, they're not going to tell you no. They're not. It's totally contradictory to their upbringing and their culture. You know, you're the man in their life, and if you want sex, they're going to give it to you. Also, on a social level, they know from their girlfriends, they've had this conversation with each other. If your girlfriend doesn't make you happy, the other girlfriends tell her, you don't make him happy in bed, he's going to find it somewhere else. And there's 10 million other Filipinas out the door who are more than willing to have an expat boyfriend. So what she knows is that no is not part of the equation. She will. You initiate sex and she will comply. Okay? Now here's what I'm here to tell you as far as untraining. Because of all these requirements that Western women gave us about, well, you only, you got to do this, you got to do that, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. We have learned to almost be in a position where we're asking. And we're like, well, is it okay if we do this? Is it okay if we do that? And on it goes. And we drag that into our relationship with a Filipina. And we limit ourselves from really the kind of sexual experience we want, in a relationship. And, all these things that end up becoming fantasies could be reality for you in your relationship with a Filipina. Forget about Western women, it just ain't going to happen. So, here's what you need to do. In Western training, let's just call it conditioning, you might even be a better word. In Western conditioning, a lot of guys, including myself, had to break away from that mentality of almost like asking permission, is it okay? And then it also was even like it's brought from the women's point of view. It's like, well, I don't do this position because it's degrading, it's demeaning, it puts me like a sex object, blah, 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 blah. And we get that running through our heads. And then we get a Filipina who is more than willing to comply. And we start telling ourselves that those same mantras. We start telling ourselves, oh, I'm not going to do this with her because that's demeaning, or this is degrading to women in general. Or it's amazing how this BS just gets stuck in your head. And I've talked to too many guys who said, well, man, I've got this fantastic Filipina. She's young, she's really hot. She never tells me no, but there's certain things I want to do, and I don't know if she's so conservative, she's so shy, and I don't know how she's going to respond if I bring it up to her and this and that. Okay, and I'll tell you now the advice I've given that has helped so many guys see their fantasies become reality. Okay, you have to be the man in the relationship, and she is wanting you to be the man in the relationship. It's not limited to just when you're going to have sex, because that's the position of most Filipinas in a relationship. They're waiting for you to let them know it's time for sex, and then they will agree. The answer is always yes. Now, it goes beyond that. It goes into you need to lead her. And because you're older and because you have more life experience and you know what you want, she's younger, doesn't have as much experience. This is the perfect arrangement for you to be teaching her, to be guiding her, leading her, showing her not just what you want, but how to do it. Okay? So, at some point, you can start slow. Again, it's a gradual thing. You just don't overnight just bam change the whole repertoire. You don't do it overnight. You have to graduate her into one thing, then another thing, then another thing. And it all depends on what you're into. Some guys are into bondage, some guys are into lingerie, some guys are into role playing and whether it's the nurse uniform, the maid uniform, the schoolgirl uniform, whatever it is, you have to graduate her into those things. Most of these women have just never, in fact, I would say almost all, not all, but almost all, they've never encountered adult toys. They've never seen a vibrator, not in person. They've definitely never used one. They've never had a man use a vibrator on them, or a vibrating egg, or, there's just so many things out there that they've never seen it because they don't have the money for it, and their Filipino boyfriends didn't have the money for it, so it just never happened. Maybe they saw it on a porn flick or something. That's about it. So here you are. You have all these ideas, this fertile imagination, things that you want to do with her, but you're worried about that she's too shy, whatever. What you need to do is, number one, graduate her into these things little by little. And as you introduce them, say you start her out with, some nice lingerie. Kind of present it as a kind of like a little bit of a gift. Kind of like, let's make this night special kind of a thing. And if there's any hesitancy, because some of them will be hesitant, because they're kind of shy, they maybe have some, and the biggest resistance you're going to hear, the first thing you'll probably hear from a good girl Filipino, whatever, is, well, she likes it, she likes the idea of this lingerie, but her first response is going to be, oh, well, isn't that what the prostitutes wear? And, here's how you can counter that, is forget about prostitutes. You're my girl. You're my woman. And you know what? It makes me happy to see you in this. And that's all that matters. Because prostitutes, they kiss. Prostitutes, they hug. Prostitutes do a lot of things. It doesn't make it wrong. But we don't need to worry about them. Let's just focus on us. So, you get her started with lingerie, and then you have to kind of like cultivate and bring out of her the fact that it's okay for her to be sexually learning new things. Okay, you have to give her a safe environment. Don't rush right into, let me grab some pictures, because she's going to worry that you're going to end up, your laptop gets stolen and now everybody on Facebook knows, what she looks like in lingerie or more. So don't just jump into, wow, that looks great, let me take a picture. Okay, don't do that. You've got to make her feel secure and safe. And if you do later take pictures, I'll tell you what you need to do. Get a program called Challenger. It's an encryption software, easy to use, and encrypt your pictures. Because if your laptop ever does get stolen, those pictures are going to end up out in the wild. All right. Also, don't store them on your phone. It's too easy to hack a phone and get those pictures, even with software that's supposed to hide it. It really doesn't hide it. It just changes the suffix, makes it. But if you hook it up to a computer, they're pretty easy to find. So don't trust your boudoir pictures to a cell phone. That's not secure at all. What you want to do is put them on a laptop, encrypt them with a program like Challenger or any good encryption software, and that way nobody can get into the pictures without the password. But again, that's kind of like advanced level number 3. You need to start her out slowly and let her know that she can safely and securely make this exploration of new things with you. That when the door is locked, whatever you do stays in that room. Because again, getting back to Filipinas, what's the one thing again that they have? Their reputation. So you've got to let her feel secure and safe with you, that she can explore these things, and it's your little secret, between the two of you. It's not going to be blabbered all over Facebook with all your buddies and whatever, every little detail. Yeah, you might want to tell your buddies, like, wow, she's finally loosening up, or hey, she's really trying whatever, but you don't really want to, say anything that's going to end up ruining her reputation, So, so that's how you start. You've got to be the man. You've got to lead. You've got to tell her specifically what you want. Don't just tell her, I'd really like to see you in some black thigh-high stockings. She's never going to go out and buy them. You buy them, present them to her when you're about to have sex, and say, hey, I really want to see you in these. It would really look sexy. And again, they're usually willing to comply. And again, the premise needs to be, you're the one woman in my life. Everything I want in pleasure from a woman is going to come from you, or substitute girlfriend. I'm not seeing any other women. I'm only seeing you. So all the things that I as a man want from a woman, I want that from you. And you maybe don't even need to say it because it's pretty much inferred. if you don't want to give it to me, maybe I'll find someone else. I mean, you don't want to say that because that's kind of like blackmail, and really it's going to have a dark tinge to everything. So you want to focus on the positive. You want to let her know the truth, which is you do desire these things and you want it from her and only her. So, again, other things, it might be positions. She may be shy about certain positions or trying new things. You need to firmly, but not abusively, make it happen. Okay? You never want to, fall into that dark area of where you're basically raping and abusing her. I'm not advocating that at all. I'm just saying be a man, be firm about it, and if she really, really doesn't want to do it, back off and say, okay, I understand. You don't want to do that? I'll make a mental note of that. If this is going to be a continued problem, I'm going to have to reevaluate our relationship. I mean, she needs to know that you want this. And if it's not going to come from her, it's going to come from someone else. Okay? Be firm, be the man. And you will be amazed. Because here's what you're shooting for. At some point, as you begin to warm her up into these things, and you start with little things, again, maybe some stockings or whatever. As you begin to get her to understand, you have a list of things that you want to explore with her. At some point, she's going to hit this tipping point, and she's going to submit to your will. She's going to realize you have a plan. She's going to realize you have things in mind you want to do. And at some point as a woman, she's actually going to take joy in surrendering her will to you and saying, teach me. I mean, some of the most beautiful words I've gotten from my girlfriends are things like, you're my boss, tell me what to do. Or another one said, you're my teacher, I'll be your student. Okay? When a woman tells you that, she has passed that tipping point. She's ready to surrender and learn from you. But that day's never going to come if you don't start making it clear specifically, here's what I'm into. Here's what I'm into. Here's what I want to do. And again, you want to graduate her little by little by little, into this. I'll wrap it up with a good example. I won't mention the guy's name, but he's a very good friend of mine, and he came to me about a year ago, and he had this great girlfriend, and she's really sweet, and they eventually made plans to get married and all that, and everything was fantastic, and she was complying in bed and all this, but he had these other ideas that he wanted to do, and part of it involved he wanted to marry her, have a real relationship with her. But he also wanted, it was like his dream, if it would ever happen, to have another hot Filipina join them for like one night, maybe one night out of a month. This isn't like an everyday thing. But, just have another Filipina come in, and then the three of them have a little menage a trois, and then that girl leaves, but it's their relationship. They're getting married, they're building a future, they're committed to each other. But he wanted a little bit of variety kind of to spice things up. Now, here's the thing. He came to me because she's a really good girl, and she's just not, that was like never on her radar to ever even consider doing something like that. So he comes to me and he's like, well, man, I'd really like to make this happen. How can I make it happen? So I talked to him, and essentially what I told him was, I said, okay, first, you're not going to push for trying to make it happen that weekend. What you got to do is introduce the idea. Mention it in passing, move on to something else. Later, you mention it again, and then you graduate. And then I said at some point, start watching a little bit of porn together. Like pull up on whatever, there's tons of free videos out there. I said, look up a topic that's something she can handle. Like maybe tell her, hey, I really love how you do oral, but here's a couple things to check out, and maybe look up some blowjob videos or whatever. And you could say, well, see how she does this or how she does that. I would really like that. I go, and then once you get her used to the idea of watching a little bit of porn together, well, then start watching a few vids with her on the threesomes. And again, he didn't want some other guy there. He wanted just an extra girl there. So he started doing that, and he started showing her the videos. Now, what you got to look for is either she really truly is not into this, and it ain't going to happen, and you're going to make a good thing go bad if you really push the issue, or in his case, she started showing a little bit of interest. And then she was like, well, yeah, let's watch another video. And wow, that's kind of sexy. And wow. And so she started like catching on, and she was like mulled it over. Now, mind you, this began a year ago. So it took about 6 months or so. But she got to the point where she was like, yeah, let's start looking into that. Let's how can we make that happen? So he got her to go on a dating site, and her contacting other women, okay, that were also interested into threesomes and that kind of thing. So he let her pick the girl out. He let her talk to her. He let her find the right girl. And now, I'll tell you now, he's a happy camper. Okay? So it can be done. I mean, but again, you do have to kind of like listen and watch, because it's not like do this, this, and this, and any Filipina is going to agree to it. That's not what I'm saying. If at all, say in this case, she may have said, no way in hell is this ever going to happen, and if you keep pushing it, we're done. Okay? Some women just, they have their limits. Every guy has his limits. There's certain things he's not going to do. Okay? Same thing with women. So what you have to look for is that real, true limit, not the extremely low limits that she's used to, just dating Filipinos, who just kind of hop on, hop off, and off they go. You want to expand her experiences, but you are eventually going to hit a brick wall, and that's her real limit. She doesn't know what her real limit is yet. Your job is to take her to that real limit of the things, and then when you get to that, then you can respect it and say, okay, maybe having you with 5 other guys is asking too much, and just drop it, But maybe you don't want that. Maybe you don't want the swinger thing. But when it comes to trying other positions, or having her wear certain things, or introducing adult toys, anything like that, or anal, you can, introduce her into these things slowly and gradually, but you need to be the man. You need to lead. You need to make this happen. Not forcefully, but again, gradually. Warming her up to the idea, introducing it to her, just being persistent, but, gentle. And you'll be amazed. You will be amazed that your whole mind will expand, because I remember when I was in the United States, I used to have this thought, oh, well, only the sketchy, uglier girls did the nasty things, and the really beautiful, sweet, girls, they don't do that. They just do missionary, and that's all there is, No, you got to drop all that idea. When you come to the Philippines, you will be amazed. These women they may be elegant, they may be gorgeous, they may be beautiful, they may be sweet, they may be innocent, they may be all these things, but behind closed doors, what they really want is a man to lead them in bed. Lead them. So that's what I'll leave you with here today. Again, just go for it. Just go for it. Be the man. Untrain yourself from all of the other opposite ideas you ever got in the West, all that limitations and all of that from the West. Forget it. You're in a whole new ball game now. You're in a position now where these women want you to lead. So lead them. All right? We'll talk about something else later. Bye-bye.